My mission is to impact the hearts and minds of women, helping them change their stories and empowering them to love themselves, their bodies, and their lives.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Change Your Story podcast. I'm Hannah Dawson, your host and transformation coach. I'm a certified personal trainer, nutritionist, mindset coach, writer, speaker, and creator of the Fit Club Babes app, and I am here to help you transform your life. While I love teaching all things nutrition and fitness, and trust me, you'll get lots of that on here, my true passion lies in the power of mindset and self-relationship. I know firsthand how powerful a mindset shift can be. It has profoundly impacted not only my health and fitness journey, but also my relationship with myself, and it can do the same for you too. Many women believe as we age, we lose our beauty, body, and health, but that's not true. You can feel and look amazing and get better with age, and I'm going to show you how. Are you ready to change your story? Let's flip the script one thought at a time. Welcome back, you guys, to part 5 of my story. Again, I wasn't sure how many parts there are going to be to this story, and there might be a few more based on, I just don't want to kind of like vomit dump my whole life into one thing. I just really want to be able to think and reflect and really share the parts that just come naturally. So again, this is just unedited. I am just speaking from the heart. I do have like a couple notes to help remind me of certain parts of my story, but this episode is called The Cost of Perfection. So if you are new to my podcast, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. We are on part 5 of my story. So you can go actually and listen to part 1 of my story, and it's called The Story That We Don't Choose. And so go and listen to that and work your way up to part 5. So part 5, we are in the cost of perfection. So last episode, I really finished off by talking about, how addiction can jump. And it really is like playing a game of whack-a-mole. And addiction for me took on a whole new, it kind of actually came full circle, right? When things aren't dealt with, they come full circle till you deal with them. And so it was like, alcohol was just the symptom of suppressed emotions, right? It was not wanting to feel the pain. And so then I, got sober. My husband helped me with that. And my having a family kind of thrust me into not thinking about the pain. It was almost another way to suppress the emotion, right? And so now my girls were a little bit older. And so things started to come up again. And God gave me a dream, and I started to feel like, oh, I do have more purpose, something I never thought that I did, beliefs that I had about myself of not being smart, of not having purpose started to open up, that maybe I did have purpose, that maybe I was meant to help women. But again, there was just such a limited belief and a lie around that I needed to have this mask. I needed to be a certain way on the outside. And so my new, addiction jumped to, my game of whack-a-mole, I like to call it, kind of went into my body, my image again. Back from when I was 12, it was image, boom, it jumped back again because I never dealt with it back then. So boom, I jumped back into it, which my idea was bodybuilding. Something I always wanted to do. I remember when I first started going to the gym when I was 15 years old, and when I would do cardio, my cardio days, I would read all of the magazines. So they had Oxygen magazine, all these fitness magazines, and I would look at the bodies. And I remember seeing these women that would compete, and I remember thinking, wow, they looked amazing. And so one woman that I really looked up to, her name was Erin Stern, and I always thought, like, I want to have that body, like that muscle. I had no idea back then how to do it. I pursued a lot of crazy ways throughout my whole life to look that way, uneducated, and I had no understanding of what looking like that, what cost came with that, and what really took place. I just thought you had to restrict, not eat, and overdo cardio. That was my method of trying to look toned and trying to look lean. But bodybuilding was a whole new world for me. And like I said, when I first met my husband, he was doing the bodybuilder diet, the bro splits. So that actually changed my body without even me thinking I wanted to change my body. I was just following him. And so I had really no idea about nutrition besides what I had kind of learned taking my PT courses. And what I was learning was pretty amazing, but I didn't believe it because I had such fear around food. I learned about carbs and how amazing they are for helping you build muscle, and how much you need pre and post workout and all of those things. I remember learning those things, but I rejected them because I was so afraid of food. I thought, not my body type. My body type can't have that. And so, after having my second baby, I told my husband, I really want to compete. I really want to do this. And so, we found a coach through a friend of a friend, which I do not recommend doing it that way. Do your research. So I had a coach, and just unaware of, all of the industry, just really ignorant to, what bodybuilding truly was, and that it was a lifestyle. I was more so doing it for the look at the end result, not realizing that that was just the result of building this bodybuilder lifestyle. I was just doing it to look a certain way. And so when I hired a coach, again, he gave me a meal plan. I didn't understand about weighing food. I was in my early 20s still. I was still young, like 28, I guess late 20s. And so I still don't understand about food and calories and the law of energy balance like I do now. And so I just followed this meal plan, didn't weigh out my food. Again, I was expecting weight to drop off really fast. It wasn't. So I was getting frustrated. My coach didn't think to ask me, are you weighing your food? Are you tracking your food? Nothing like that. So all he decided to do was cut out food for me. So he took out a whole macronutrient. He said, there's a new diet method right now. It's called keto. I think it would work really well for your body. I said, sure, whatever will get this weight off the fastest. My training was amazing. I showed up and I trained every day. And with my two little girls, I would take them to childcare. Back then, they actually had daycares inside gyms, which was, a saving grace in the sense of I was a new mom. I didn't get much time to myself. So that was my time to myself. I would train. I'd be there for a couple hours. Me and the girls would go home. We'd feed. I would eat. They would eat. And then we'd all nap because I was so tired. So I would nap when they would nap. And so this was my routine. However, as I started cutting out food, I started losing weight really quickly. And what he also incorporated now, and I know you guys have heard of it, is cheat days. And so I would get a cheat meal. And so this would be a cheat meal. So it really started to, all that eating disorder that kind of was not dealt with when I was a teenager came back. And so what this started for me was a binge restrict cycle. So during the week, I did keto. On the weekend, I did not do keto. So during the week, I ate chicken, coconut oil, and green beans. I had a shake with coconut oil for breakfast. I had aminos, and that's pretty much what I ate. I think my calories were like 13 or 1400 calories, like extremely low. And so when it came to my cheat meal, you bet you I went to Save On and I bought Oreos and I bought ice cream and I bought candy and I bought chocolate, and I would binge all weekend, and I would feel so shitty and shameful and guilty that I started buying these laxative teas. They're these tummy teas are actually really popular back then. So I was kind of very in denial that it was a full-on eating disorder. Like, I knew, you always know when you know, but you lie to yourself, like, oh, you'll make excuses like, oh, this is not an eating disorder. This is just, I'm getting rid of my bloat and it's just making me go to the bathroom. So I got addicted to laxatives, whether it was teas or pills. I started taking them all the time. So every weekend. So I really started this unhealthy binge cycle, and the shame started because I was hiding it. I felt like I was lying and back in this cycle of addiction again. But, I was so, I was so hung up on this dream. So as I was training to compete my first competition, which I was training to do figure, which the coach at the time, because I have bigger legs, I am a pear shape, told me I need to do figure because of my legs. So I listened to him. And so just kind of never listening to my own voice, just following what people told me to do, how people told me to be. So I had this idea because I was that young girl. I remember that dream as a young girl looking at those magazines. I thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to lead women. I'm going to get in such great shape. It's going to help me as a coach and a trainer because I will have more authority. People will respect me more because I will look a certain way. So then they'll want to hire me. And then, I'll probably get on a magazines or some type of, brand. What is it called? Like endorsements or whatever. So I had this, and this pushed me through. This actually helped me show up and train because I had this vision, I had this dream, even though I was developing some unhealthy habits. And so as long as I looked a certain way, as long as I felt like I had control, which I would be extreme during the week, and on the weekends I would let it go, but I would have control again because I would drink that tea. And some weeks I'd do it and some weeks I wouldn't. And I was just an all or nothing. I just really started to develop a really unhealthy relationship with food. It became so obsessive and all consuming that when I did compete, I didn't place. I didn't even make top 5. I made 6. And again, I'm going to do a lessons and reflections, but quickly looking back now, I see, I just was so unaware and uneducated. And if I could go back to that girl now, I would say, way to go, good job, this is amazing, your first show. I didn't understand about building a lifestyle, and I didn't have a coach to teach me that it's like these habits that you're building. It's not about how fast you can get the weight off. It's about these habits that you're building. But again, I didn't know. And so I really spiraled after that. I really spiraled because this idea that I had in my mind of how I was going to build my career and this new me came crashing down. I was so stuck on building this image, and I was so tied to what I did and how I looked, that I didn't think about who I was becoming, or I didn't think about being me or letting people see me, because I didn't really feel like she was enough. I kind of shut her up and I rejected her a long time ago. We were going to dress her up. We were going to make her look good. And that's all that mattered. As shallow as that sounds, that's really what the heart of it was. As I look back, I just had such low self-esteem and I rejected myself so much that there was no way I was going to fully be me and embrace me. And so as time went, I competed my first show in 2014 and my second show was 2016. And in between that time, I actually decided to do Beachbody to lose the weight. I was desperate to lose the post weight that I put on, the post competition weight that I put on, because I didn't do my diet properly. I didn't reverse. I had no idea about any of that stuff. So I was feeling really low. And so I did the 21-day fit fix, autumn calories. I did the extreme one, of course, couldn't do the first one, had to do the most extreme, get the weight off the fastest, followed the eating to a T. Again, really extremely low calories. It was portion size containers and I was eating about 1400 calories. So again, dropped the weight really fast. However, something that I learned in Beachbody was this thing called personal development and mindset as a coach, because you did at least 20 minutes of that a day. You did your workout and nutrition. And this is something that really impacted me more so later on than it did in the moment, but it's something that I loved because faith was such a big part of my life. God was such a big part of my life. God still is a big part of my life, but it was such, then I loved like the wisdom that I would learn or new things that I would learn. It was like my brain was so hungry. My heart was so hungry to learn more and to become a better person. I just wanted to become a better person. And that was the issue. I never was enough. I never was good enough. I never was successful enough. I never was fit enough. I never was smart enough. I always had to keep learning. And I would take education and I would learn and I would listen, and it was never enough. I never would teach what I was learning at that time because I just didn't feel like, I felt like an imposter. I felt like I just wasn't smart enough to teach what I was learning. I was learning, but I still didn't feel qualified enough. It was just this crazy low self-esteem as I look back, and this all these lies and limited beliefs. And so Between that time, I had lost all this weight from doing the 21 day fit fix. I felt really good. My confidence was back. And of course, my influences around me, love them. Autumn Calabrese has breast implants. And then some friends that I was hanging out with had breast implants, girls I would go to the gym with, and also getting Botox. And so this started to influence me. I thought, yeah, that's what I need. I need to have my breasts done. I deserve it. I've had 2 babies. I talked myself into this, and I was so excited to get these breast implants. So I got my breast implants. Then I ended up starting to get Botox. So in the midst of this, getting all this done, then I decided, yeah, I got to compete again. And this time I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do bikini because I really wanted to do bikini. And I noticed once you lean out, what you think you're big and you're actually not. Fat just takes up a lot of room. And I actually was pretty tiny when I lost weight. So I thought I'll just do bikini. And so I hired another coach. This time I had more nutrition education and I was taking more courses. So I was learning a lot more. And my coach at the time, he was very educated in nutrition and amazing. So he'd always talk to me about nutrition. So learned lots in my second show. And I placed first. And so that was good and it was dangerous because now I had Botox. Now I had breast implants. Now I had the super blonde hair. I went really, really blonde, like platinum dyed blonde. So I had this image, this look. My clients increased, all these things, and I tied it to how I looked. I tied it to this image. And so all of a sudden this fear came over me of not staying as lean or losing this image. This is why people liked me. Again, it was like almost like a total, we're back in like when I first started my fitness journey and losing the weight. I didn't recognize it at that moment though. As I'm talking to you now and as going through my story, of course, I've done lots of healing and I can see that now, that girl that just so desperately wanted to love herself, that as long as other people did, then she did. And if I didn't get the validation, then, or the likes on social media or whatever, then I had a really hard time loving myself. It was very conditional. My love for myself was based on conditions, based on how I looked, based on how much people liked me, based on how I performed, based on how good of a mom I was that day. If I didn't lose my temper, like my love was so conditional. My confidence was so conditional. My worth was so conditional. And so when I competed the second time and won, it really did blow up my career. It really did impact my status. And so this became dangerous in the sense of my worth became tied to that. And again, still had this empty feeling inside. Went through depression really bad. Later on, now I see that was just something that was nudging at me because I was ignoring who I was. I was ignoring that voice. I was rejected who I was, and she was just sad and she wanted to come out and she wanted to be heard and she wanted to be healed. But I just kept ignoring that with like, no, we're going to dress you up. We're going to make you look pretty. We're going to make you look smart. We're going to get you likes. We're going to, as long as people like you. And it was like these two different people. And then shortly after I competed that time, like I said, I was taking lots of education, more nutrition courses because I was obsessed with learning about nutrition. I was obsessed about learning about food and different methods of fat loss. And so that's when I started carb cycling and really learned about this method of fat loss. So up until this point, I knew a lot about nutrition. I was learning lots, but I was so afraid of food. I had so many names for food, like cheat days, bad food, good food, clean eating, like all of these things that I had labeled food. My food language was very toxic. And so even though I knew all of this about food, I still was I was so afraid to eat more. So I just found different ways to do fat loss and keep it working. So carb cycling, I became obsessed with. But here's the thing, when you are chronically dieting all the time, guess what gets affected? Your hormones, your serotonin, and most of all your energy levels. And on top of it, you guys, after I got breast implants, like before I competed, I started getting these crazy symptoms, but I ignored it. I had no idea. that it was my breast implant. So after the second time competing, the depression started to increase, the exhaustion started to increase, couldn't really figure out what was going on. I was getting acid reflux really bad. I couldn't even work out. I couldn't even do a bicep curl, and it would almost be like puke would come up in my mouth. It would be burning. And so I went to the doctor, to get some tests, and she goes, I think you might have H. pylori. So she did a test, and in between this time, it was Christmas, and I remember spending that Christmas in bed. And I remember thinking, what the frick is wrong with me? I cannot get out of bed. And it was like beyond depression. It was like I could stare at a wall. It was like my bones were tired. Just the worst feeling ever, missing out on going to do things with my girls because I was just extremely exhausted. And when you're that exhausted, everything irritates you. You just want to be left alone. I didn't want to be around anybody. And so, the doctor called me back in and said, you need to come in. And so, because they had done blood work, I had done this blow test for this H. pylori. I had H. pylori. My liver enzymes were through the roof. She goes, are you drinking lots of alcohol? And she didn't know that I was a recovering addict. And I said, no, I have been sober for like 8 years now. And I think at the time it was 8 years or maybe more. It would have been six years. I said, no, I've been sober for 6 years. And she goes, oh, your liver enzymes are really high. And then also your thyroids are out of whack, like your thyroids, both thyroids. So at that time, I had been on a low dose of Synthroid after I had my second baby, like really, really low, like 0.5 or below that, just 0.25 or something. But both of them were off. So my T3 and T4. She goes, something's going on. And so my husband had made a joke. Oh, I bet you it's those implants that you got. And even though he made a joke, I started to think that is the only thing that has been different in the last 2 years. Why am I struggling? Extreme bloating, like just all these symptoms, achy joints, really tired, swollen. And I'm like, it would be like I couldn't, when I would go to work out, I couldn't progress. I didn't have the strength that I used to have. I mean, I couldn't even do push-ups or pull-ups because it felt like my breast implants would pop. Like it was just uncomfortable. I couldn't fully be and do the things that made me feel alive, and even show up anymore. And I used to love to speak and motivate and do these little like videos on social media and just really speak from my heart. And that started to dwindle, like all these little things, that I just kind of ignored and put to the side. And so I started researching. And at that time in 2016, there was not very many, if any, stories about breast implant illness, none on YouTube. I came across a lady with Lyme disease, and then she slowly started to talk about breast implants. So I started researching implant toxicity, breast implant illness, whatever. So all of these things came up, and I found this one document that said all these symptoms of breast implant illness, implant toxicity, and I had every symptom from the liver enzymes to the fatigue, to depression, to anxiety, to H. pylori, to like it named everything. And so I printed it off and I brought it to my doctor, and I felt weird because you're giving a doctor these things like, they should be a doctor, they should know. And I said to my doctor, I said, hey, you know how the test came up kind of weird. Well, I wanted to show you this thing, and I just wanted your perspective on it to see maybe this could be it. And she looked at it and she goes, oh my gosh. She goes, how did you even think to look into that? Like, that's amazing. And I said, she goes, you need to book time in to talk to your surgeon that put them in. And so I did, and everything was documented. And so in my medical files and everything. So I went to see the surgeon, and I said I wanted them out, and he gave me this huge spiel of how I wouldn't have confidence. And remember when I came to see him, and this isn't actually a thing that like essentially I was making up in my head. I said, I don't care. I just want them out. I know the decision. I feel like in my gut, I knew it was the right decision. And so legally he had to take them out. Like, everything was documented. I didn't have to pay for anything. He took them out. And literally when he took them out, he retired a week later. So I was just in the nick of time to get them out. And so after I got my breast implants out, I really started to think about and really started to pursue why I got them in the first place. It was like something inside of me was awakening. It was like something was starting to wake up inside of me. I didn't understand it yet, and it fully wouldn't come out yet for a few more years. But that is kind of where the process of pursuing myself began. And I decided in that moment that I was going to start building a healthy relationship with my body. It was so toxic. It was so, such a blanket for me. It was like a soother for me. It was like ripping something from a baby that gives them comfort. Weight loss was an addiction for me. Changing my body was an addiction for me. I didn't see it as that. I didn't realize that my addiction just jumped. It just jumped into this chase for perfection. This need to numb away what was trying to come out, what was trying to be heard, this story that was inside me that I was just ignoring, this healing that I didn't want to face. And though I went to see tons of counselors and worked through little bits of it, I still didn't understand this one concept that later on, a couple of years later, I started to realize, and that was self-love. Because being in the church, self-love was a sin. It was, you're selfish. You pursue selflessness. And so I thought, and maybe this I could be saying in this wrong context, right? But that is what I believed. And so I believed that you don't love yourself, that is you put other people before you. And so we'll come back to that part later, but I'll continue on. So I got my breast implants removed, and I remember, getting back from the doctors, and the day I got back from the doctors, I ended up with a hematoma. Because they removed the capsules around the breast. They removed the breast implants and then removed the capsules because it builds up this hard, what is it called? It's like this capsule. It builds up around this hard, I can't think of it right now. But anyway, so they have to remove that. And the risk for that is a hematoma or blood clots. So it can be pretty dangerous. And so, of course, I ended up with a hematoma back in the surgery. The next day, they had to put me under and drain all the blood out. And so that healing process within the first couple weeks was amazing. Like, I instantly felt better. It was so weird. Even though I just underwent surgery, I instantly felt better on such a spiritual level, physical level, mental level. But at the same time, I remember hearing this voice say, "And the Botox." And I remember thinking, what? And before I kind of knew that I was going to be on this self-love, pursuing self-relationship with myself, I didn't really know until it started to unfold like this. And so these were thoughts that were coming, and the Botox. I remember thinking, no, I don't want to do the Botox. Like, at least let me keep the Botox. And it's like, nope, we're going to take that away, because I fully, in order to pursue this and pursue a relationship with yourself, you have to be authentically, fully you, embrace everything about you and what you think maybe your imperfections are. You can't have any soothers, because here's the thing with distortion. Here's the thing with this dysmorphia is, if you feed it, it doesn't go away. It just gets bigger. And that's what I noticed when I had my breast implants. And that's what I noticed when I would get Botox, and I would tell my husband, and I just ignored it. You just ignore that quiet little voice. It would never be enough. I remember I'd get Botox and I'd be so worried that it was going to leave, or I would start seeing more lines that I didn't even notice before. So before I got Botox, I didn't notice all of the imperfections, like a little bit, but not obsessively. Once I got the Botox, it felt like they increased. It felt like my vision got even more distorted. Like there was more things I could fix. My boobs weren't big enough. They weren't straight enough. My skin wasn't tight enough. And so when I had to let all of that go, it was like, to give you like a visual, it was like, there was like this, if you've seen like alien movies, okay, that's like weird, but when they have to rip it off and you can see like, it's like suctioning like their face or their body, and there's like that sticky stuff that they have to rip it off. That's what it was like. It was like this distortion that I was having to like literally rip off this mask, this thing that was sucking the life out of me. And it was a slow process. It didn't happen all at once. But I knew it was the process that I had to go through, because I thought, like, this is in my heart. And what I know now is the way I would help women wasn't going to be the way that maybe others helped women. It was going to be being me. And I couldn't be me. I couldn't pretend to be me and teach others how to love themselves if I didn't do it myself, if I didn't go through and have to go through these uncomfortable things and fully be me. We're in a world now that is fixated on filters, whether that's Botox, whether that's injections, whether that's breast implants, butt implants. Now we have injections that will make you lose weight really fast. Like, we live in a world that is pursuing perfection, and to go in that opposite way can feel like you're going against the grain, can feel like, like you don't fit in, like you're a black sheep, like whatever. But I knew that this was the area that I was being called into. So I knew that I had to pursue it no matter how uncomfortable it was. And believe me, it almost started to get more uncomfortable. And so again, my natural pull, or what do you call it? Like, my way to deal and cope with things is, okay, I want to do another show. I want to do a wellness show, because this was a new category and it was for girls with bigger legs. And I had my breast implants, and my heart was like, I'm going to do this show. I'm going to do it naturally. I'm going to do it with no Botox, no implants, fully embrace my curves and inspire other women to be the same and to do the same. And here's the thing, that's what I told myself, but that wasn't reality. It was like I was still trying to prove to myself that I was worthy, and loved, even after having these things, removed. And so I competed in my third show. I got second, did great, but it brought up again this unhealthy relationship with my body, this need to obsessively obsess over my weight, over food. And so I knew all these tools. I had all this education now, but I was still struggling. And that, at the end of the day, in my most quiet moments, would bring me to tears, because I felt like, why can't I control this? What is going on with me? Why can't I just be free? I don't feel free. I feel like I'm being held and shackled in chains when it comes to food or my body image. And I just wanted to be free so badly. And so I remember, standing in front of the mirror, and I'm starting to notice the lines, because after a few months the Botox wears away, and I remember just standing in front of the mirror, and I don't know if this was actually, sorry you guys, before I competed the third time or after, but I remember this moment vividly. And this moment was this: I was standing in front of the mirror naked, getting ready to get in the shower, feeling naked emotionally, feeling naked in a different way. I don't know the word for it, but you get what I mean. I was feeling naked. I was feeling like I wanted to reach for something to numb what was missing inside, to numb the emptiness that I was feeling, to numb the to take away. I was looking for something to grab onto to validate me, something to grab onto to make me feel confident, something to grab onto to build my confidence, whatever that is. I know that you have been there. I can feel it. You can feel it when you just want that one thing. Maybe I'll do this and it will make me love myself more. The next outfit, more money, more popularity, maybe lose weight, more muscle, whatever it is, tighter tummy, bigger lips. Like, we want to reach for something to boost that confidence, but it's not actually, it's just another addiction. It's just another addiction. So I remember standing in the mirror and my first thought was, let's lose weight. And at this moment in my life, I was feeling discouraged. At this moment in my life, I had been training people in person, and I was slowly building this online platform, because my dream was to build this online platform for women to help them with their nutrition, their mindset, their training. And this was pre-COVID. And so I was just feeling like I didn't have what it took, and so and this was when social media was getting really big too. So you'd always compare other trainers and other bodies and other coaches to their bodies, and also the likes that they got, and also how big their platforms were growing. And I just remember getting so depressed and getting so obsessive, and comparison would just suck my joy. That the first thoughts, and always the first thoughts, is you're not enough. You need to be prettier, you need to be skinnier, you need to do more, you need to be more organized, you need to be more successful. It didn't matter what I did, I never felt successful enough. It didn't matter how much weight I lost, I never felt skinny enough. It didn't matter all the plastic surgeries or all the makeup, I never felt pretty enough. I didn't see the pattern. I didn't see the pattern until this moment, standing in front of the mirror and hearing that voice, could you love her? And really deciding, okay, I need to pursue my self relationship. I don't know what that looks like, but I need to build this relationship with myself, because I have heard and I have preached, even as a coach, the most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself. But I didn't really know what that meant. And maybe I did, but I was unwilling to look at those deepest parts of myself. I just wasn't ready. And I guess I had to go through all of that to be able to grow through the next phase of building this relationship with myself. And so I remember praying and really asking God, because, I would go through moments where I'd be in the gym and I'd almost want to walk out because I would see cellulite, or I would see my legs that look too big or whatever. And I just remember, in those moments, and this is a prayer that has helped me, and I've shared this many times, is I would say, God, remove the distorted mirrors from my eyes and my mind. And every time I would do that and I'd look at myself, they would be removed. It would be like I would see someone different. And so I just really started praying, like, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know how to work on this relationship with myself. Please help me. And this is where the cool stuff started happening, you guys. There's a few incidents. The first one was the Flash. And I'm sure you guys have heard me tell this story. If you're new or you haven't, this is like, I'm a huge love, like DC, Marvel, all that stuff. I think the Flash is DC. But I love like superhero stuff. And I used to watch the series The Flash on Netflix. And so on this particular episode, and all throughout my life, you guys, so I won't go on a rabbit trail or whatever, rabbit hole, and start going down other areas. But just a quick thing is, like, all of my life, the moments, I said in a couple podcasts before, is like, I never met God in church. I always met him at the darkest parts of my life, or like the lowest parts of my life. It would be like the randomest things, like a stranger would say something, help me out. A TV show would say exactly what I needed to hear. I literally would have supernatural experiences where I would literally see angels, and I would see things and eyes that I couldn't explain, like very like, not looks like a ghost, but like almost like energy. I could see it. And I have had no idea like what was going on, and I could never explain it because, it's just something that I experienced since I've been a little girl. I've had all these like almost supernatural experiences. And so these messages that would get to me that I needed to hear, or a person would help me that was so random. And so this was another one of those times, as laying in bed watching The Flash. And this is after like I had made the decision to start pursuing a relationship with myself. And so in this episode of The Flash, they found out that there was other worlds, but on those worlds were their doppelgangers. So if you're not sure what a doppelganger is, it's the same. It's like you. It's like your double version of who you are. It's like your twin. And so, but these doppelgangers in the show were like, they're evil. And so anyways, they had to kind of go and change whatever was going on. Long story short, throughout this whole episode, I'm seeing this and my mind starts going, could you imagine if you had a doppelganger on another planet? Like, what if there was another you? And I started going down this thought process. What if she was everything that you wanted to be? What if you met you and she was doing your dream? She had the body, she had the habits, she had the confidence, she had the voice, she had the kindness, she had the faith, she had the boldness, she had, all of these things, right? And that was the first I started thinking about this, and I thought, I never thought about that before, right? And then, okay, so that was the first moment, and it started to awaken something in me, and I felt like, spirit or God or the universe was telling me to hang on to that. And so the next day, again, like I said, I was in a really bad rut of comparing myself to other people on social media. I would listen to podcasts. I would watch YouTube videos. I would follow people, and it would almost like it would be things that would help me, but also I would get in a really bad comparison trap and think I, really get low and really get hard on myself. Moments that, I've never really shared with anybody. I would sit and cry in front of my computer and go, this is why you're not where you're at. You're never going to be successful. You're always going to have to depend on your husband, and all these limited beliefs about growing up with no money and all of these things, and you're not organized enough, and you're not a good enough mom, and like all of these things. And so like I said, I was in a habit of listening to podcasts. And so one of my favorite podcasts was Lori Harder, and also Amy Porterfield, and also Jenna Kutcher. I was really drawn to like more business stuff because I felt like, they had the secret to helping me make my business successful. And so I was always on the search for the next thing that would help me become a better human, a better coach, a better woman. And so I was always learning. I was very coachable that way. I was always learning because I didn't think I was worthy enough. I didn't think I knew enough. So I was always trying to learn more. It was never enough for me. I was never smart enough yet. I was never successful enough. Anyways, sorry, rabbit hole. Back to listening to Lori Harder's podcast, and it was very funny because I listened to 2 episodes that day. The first one was Lori Harder, and it was this. She was talking about how she really battled imposter syndrome, or not feeling good enough, or having low self-esteem. And I cannot remember how the episode went, and I don't remember what episode it was because it was so long ago now. But she talked about she went to a Tony Robbins conference, and it was about, writing out an old story or new story or changing your story. Anyways, she decided to write an email to herself. Again, you guys, I could be saying this totally wrong, but I'm trying to bring back to my memory. And she essentially talked about in this episode of she had to write out an email. I think she emailed it to herself, but she had to write out her old story and her new story. And she had to start showing up as, she had to change the narrative, or she had to rewrite her story or something like that. But it inspired me. She, write a new story. Who is that person? And so boom, it clicked to the episode I watched to The Flash about what would that doppelganger be and how could this happen? Like the fact that I would listen to that and then this episode almost like piggybacked off that, like, okay, there's this, and that idea was speaking to me, but I didn't still understand it. And then Lori Harder's talking about, writing this story out, the story that plays in your head. And you need to know the story that's playing. So you need to write out all of the things that you feel why you can't do something or why you're not doing it, and all the things that you want, because then you have to challenge that narrative, right? And then write out your new story and start showing up as her. So I loved this idea, and it was so powerful. And so that's when I started realizing, and I didn't realize it till then, that the reason why going over my life and feeling that emptiness, you guys, feeling that the depression and the anxiety, and why am I sober and I'm still feeling this way? And so then I would go after these things. I'd go after this, exterior, trying to change the way I look, trying to build influence, trying to build a platform, trying to create more wealth for my family, trying to build the successful people, trying to have more transformations, trying to, with my clients, trying to do all these things. And yes, those were working, and yes, those were great, but they were just, they were only good for so long because I still didn't believe in myself, because the story that was playing in my mind was that I wasn't enough. So I would always be on the lookout for the next thing. That's why I kept taking courses after courses after courses. And yes, I would teach it to my community, and they were getting amazing results. And I would show up and I would do mindset coaching every Friday and teach what I was learning and feel really good because I was empowering them. But every time I would leave those, I would feel like empty, like I wasn't doing enough. And I realized that the narrative playing in my mind back from when I was a little girl, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't good enough, you guys, I don't even know why I'm saying this right now, but I feel a need to say it. I remember being a child, and even in school, I couldn't get work done because I would write something out and the writing wouldn't be good enough. I would rip it up and I would start again. And if the letters were messy, I would rip it up. I couldn't even get my work done because I was so focused on my writing not being perfect. And this seemed like it played out a theme in my life on a bigger perspective. Not perfect enough, need to start again. You guys, recording these podcasts, I almost wasn't going to post them because I'm like, no, you need to re-record them. You're going on and on and on. And like this negative, this uncomfortable feelings start coming up as I'm opening up to you and sharing these vulnerable parts of my life with you, of not being good enough. And it's funny teaching you, how I changed my story. It's still evolving. It's still changing. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning of starting to change my story. And it became my slogan for my business because this impacted me so much. It radically transformed me. And I mean, not overnight, but it started to become, I started to hear things. I was way more aware. It was like all the puzzle pieces started to come together. And I started to see, patterns, and I started to see cycles, and I started to see the game, that whack-a-mole I was playing with my life. And I started to see, that it doesn't matter what you chase after. It doesn't matter how fast you are running if you are running in the wrong direction. You could go 1,000 miles an hour, but if it's in the wrong direction, girl, it is in the wrong direction. You cannot outrun yourself. And I think that was the theme of my life. I was running and running and running and running, and not physically running, and sometimes physically running. But a lot of the time it was running away from myself. I was trying to shut myself up with looking a certain way, dressing her up, to look a certain way, stuffing food in her to shut her up, like all of these things. I just didn't want to deal with it. And the biggest thing that changed my life was understanding that, the reason that nothing felt like it was changing, why I felt like my house kept collapsing every time something would happen, was because I was not changing the story. I wasn't facing who I was. I wasn't loving who I was. I wasn't forgiving her. I wasn't nurturing her. I was just trying to not be her, because back when I was a child and back when I was a teenager, I had made that pact in my heart without even saying it out loud that I rejected her. I rejected myself. I didn't want to be her. I wanted to be anything but who I was. I mean, I even wanted my mom to change my name. I wanted to change my name. I rejected her. And so in my 30s, dealing with all of this, and I realized that if I don't, make a change, the cycle is going to continue for my girls, and it's going to continue and continue and continue. And I have to break the cycle, just like we broke the cycle of addiction in our family. I had to break the cycle. I had to change the story. I am the author of my story. You are the author of your story, and you get to decide how it goes. But here's the thing, is that in order to change your story, you must know what's going on. You must know the story playing in your head, and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be painful. And I had to face pain. I had to face the discomfort. I had to learn to sit with the discomfort. And first, you guys, it started with the discomfort of not being able to chase weight loss, not being able to do Botox or implants, because that was something that I knew it wasn't going to help me evolve or become the woman that I wanted to be, to change my story so I could lead by example. Not that those things are bad, but they weren't for me, and they still aren't for me. Not saying that they never will be, but at this moment, I had to focus internally and not externally. I had to do some internal healing. And so from there, I read books, and one of the books that really helped me was Louise Hay. It was called the 21-Day Self-Love Challenge. It's a mirror challenge. And I mean, I read so many of her books, and I would listen to them because I love her voice. And she said in one of her books is this, and it radically changed everything. It changed the way I saw myself. It changed the way I saw my life. It changed the way I saw the way I was raised and the people that raised me. And it was this, is that a belief is just a thought, and a thought can be changed. So I started thinking about the beliefs. Where did I get them? Where did they come from? Are they true? And do they align? Do I want those beliefs? Do I want to believe that? I don't. So I'm going to change them. And so thought patterns are simple to change, but they're hard to change. Simple meaning, okay, you know what to do, you just have to change the thought. But if there is deep rooted beliefs, if your belief system about who you are is broken, you have to be willing to confront those broken belief systems, which can be hard because sometimes those beliefs have become truths for you, right? Even if they're lies, they have become truth for you. So it can be really hard to break those belief systems. But the thing that I realized that breaks those broken belief systems, that breaks those lies, is love. Is love. Is love. Is self-love. And Louise Hay taught me that. It's loving yourself. You have to love yourself. And the religion that I grew up in, self-love is not okay. It's selfish. You have to be selfless. Like, the selflessness is a great thing, quality too, but how can you love other people if you don't love yourself? And so you have to love yourself wholeheartedly. You have to be able to put yourself first in order to help those around you, so I pursued this love. And so it was kind of cool because as I was dealing with learning to love myself, the next chapter of my life was really dealing with my relationship with food. So now it was with my body. Now I had to deal with my relationship with food. And so I had to apply everything I was learning because I really was seeing this pattern of women getting stuck in cycles of dieting, chronic dieting, yo-yo dieting, really unhealthy body language, a really unhealthy food language. And I really wanted to break free myself so I could help other women break free from this too. So I knew that I was going to have to do something that absolutely scared the shit pants off of me, and that was I was going to have to do a build. I was going to have to eat more food, and I was going to have to track. And I thought, something I've never done, and in order to get a result that you've never got, you've got to do something that you've never done. If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. And so I remember this build journey that I took. I said, I'm going to do it for 8 weeks and I'm done, right? Not understanding how muscle building works, like understanding it but not believing it. And so this build journey went from 8 weeks to 8 months. And you guys, I haven't dieted ever since. So that was 2021. I started my build journey. And then I went to maintenance, and I haven't dieted since then. And honestly, the thought of it makes me feel like I'm going back to a prison. I feel so good in my body. So many amazing things happened when I went to a build. And just even eating at maintenance, I realized the fear I had of food was an illusion. I wasn't eating enough of the right things. I didn't gain all of this weight. I gained a bit of weight, but it was more muscle than anything. I felt stronger. I had more energy. I started sleeping better. My hormones were balanced. Like, I felt good. I wasn't obsessively thinking about food. I wasn't night binging like I did for so many years, or weekend binging like I did. I felt like my relationship with food was like, it was good. And I started changing my food language. And I didn't do this all by myself. I did have mentors that I really looked up to, and I really listened. And I took pretty much all of their courses throughout this whole period. From the time that I did my second competition, I was taking nutrition courses. I was learning about proper training. I was getting more advanced training. So these were all things that I was learning, but it wasn't until I did a build that things started to click for me. They started to make sense because I started to listen to this lady's trust my body, trust myself, and trust in my faith. And those became an anchor. I realized that there's ingredients for a real transformation to take place and for your story to change. And it's trust. You have to trust. And trust requires patience. Trust requires focus. Trust requires vulnerability. Because when we don't trust, we try to hurry things along. And the number one root cause of being in a hurry with anything in our life, guess what it is? It's fear. And fear doesn't produce, oh, there was a quote that I read. I'm going to have to find it. You guys, I found it, so I had to pause for a second. This was the quote that I heard about fears, and it says this, that the fears we don't face become our limits. And it's so true. If we don't face our fears, they imprison us. They become limited beliefs. So we have to be willing to face those and trust. And I had to trust that the things I was learning, I had to trust my body. I had to trust my coaches and my mentors that I was learning from. And the biggest part of me in the beginning when I was learning all this is I would teach all of my clients, and I would do it to my clients, and they were getting incredible results. And a part of me was getting jealous because what I was teaching them, I was confident in. But I was too scared to do it to myself. I was too scared to step into that myself. And it was once I stepped into that, once I leaped, so to speak, the bridge appeared. And everything shifted from that moment. Everything shifted. And so that's really when my story began to change. And so for my anniversary, what was it? It's my, my 12th anniversary, my husband got me a tattoo. And so I got this tattoo of this woman coming out of a book. And there is flowers growing around her as she's coming out of this book, her upper body, and there's butterflies all around it because butterflies represent transformation. And the book represents changing her story. And you guys, the biggest, takeaway that I hope you can take away from this is it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what's been done to you, what you've done. There's nothing, it's not too late to change your story, and you absolutely have the power to change your story. And just like that quote about the fears becoming your limits if you don't face them, if you don't face the story that's keeping you stuck, you will be constantly stuck in a cycle, in a loop that will have you going around and around and around. And each time you go around, it may look a little differently. And you can live in the lie and tell yourself that, oh, at least it's not this. But if you were to get raw and real and honest with yourself, it's this, that you are still, those things are still controlling you. Those things are still keeping you limited, even though, you found another way to numb, even though you found another way to cope. Coping is all the same when it keeps us from becoming the woman that we are meant to be, when it keeps us from living the story and moving on to the next chapter. Some of us are stuck in chapters, stuck on a repeat in a chapter, and we're not sure how to get out. It's because we're not facing, we're not aware of the cycle and the game of whack-a-mole that's being played. It's like being stuck in a freaking funhouse mirror. Those funhouse mirrors, those clown, whatever creepy things you go in the mirrors, you look different every time. And so if we are constantly, the mirror may change, but distortion is distortion. And if you keep making a decision based on what you're looking in a distorted mirror, you're just going to go to another mirror and find something else to fix. And just the cycle just repeats itself in a whole new way. So, truth and trust are the only thing, and love, I should say love, is the root that will bring up truth, and it will be able to bring up trust. You have to be willing to love yourself where you're at. Nobody can do it for you. You have to, understand that you are here for a purpose. You have something so much greater inside of you, and that it is going through, you're going to have to go through it to get out of it. Whatever you're in, whatever season you're in, maybe some of my story resonates with you, maybe all of it does, maybe you've been through way worse trauma things. But, it doesn't matter we can't compare, what is worse or what is not, because trauma and being stuck, and when our soul can't be what it was always meant to be, it's the same. It keeps us imprisoned. It keeps us suffocated. When we cope with things, it keeps us suffocated from becoming who we're meant to be. So we have to be willing and open and honest and vulnerable. And that's why it's so important to share our stories with one another, our triumphs, our trials. And, if that's sometimes sharing your wounds instead of your scars, because that's where you're at, that's okay, because that will bring healing too. And it's being open and honest, because when we hold that in, this is the revelation that I have got to you while I've been recording these podcasts for you. And I'm going to finish up this podcast with this, is that when we hold in all of that inside of us and we don't share it, guess what? That becomes baggage, in a sense of why we get exhausted, why we get anxious, why we're depressed. Those things are just telling us that we're stuffing things inside, right? And so whether we try to keep those things down with booze, with drugs, with alcohol, I guess booze and alcohol are the same, with drugs, with food, with spending money, with getting obsessed about certain things, maybe getting obsessed about our weight. These are ways that we control, trying not to deal with the things that we are not letting out of us. And it's not until that we get vulnerable enough and we trust ourselves and love ourselves enough to let that out, that the weight lifts off our shoulders, that our energy comes back, that healing can go in. Because if you are stopping yourself from being hurt or not dealing with pain, it only creates more pain. When you run from yourself or numb those things away, you're not getting away from it, you're just recreating it. And that's what I realized through my whole life. I was running, and I kept running into the same thing. Maybe looked differently, all of my whack-a-moles were different, from abuse to disorders, to addiction on different levels, to back to disorders, back to addiction and a different level, whether it was my fitness, whether it was making money, whether it was drugs or alcohol, whether it was the pursuit of perfection. It all shows up in different ways. And I could feel that when I changed my story. I realized I was living in recovery, from recovery to recovery. It would look different each time. It would morph each time. And I wanted to live beyond that. I wanted to get to a place of freedom. I wanted to get to a place of freedom with who I was, with my body, with my faith, with nutrition, with fitness. And I wanted to show women how to do the same thing. You guys, that is my story. That is how I have got to where I am. I am still going through and growing through different things, and I hope that you'll come on this journey with me. And I promise that I will be open and transparent with you as I go through more challenges. I know you've listened to my last podcast before my story episode and the challenges that I kind of faced with my business. And I hope, that as I open up and I'm vulnerable with you, that you will be with me, because this just is going to create such an amazing community and such amazing transformation. And it really is a way that we love each other, and love is the greatest of all. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Lastly, before we go, I just want to say this, is that life is too short to wait. So whatever it is that is in your life, tomorrow is not better. Next year is not better. It will never be perfect or polished. You just have to go for it and learn that you're going to have to go through it to get out of it. You're going to have to go through. The only way out of whatever you feel stuck in is through. You have to go through and grow through the emotions, go through whatever healing that you need to. You have to pursue this with all of your heart, right? And there's a quote on my wall that says this. It says, all things are possible if you believe. I actually have another quote here that I want to leave you with too, that says, everything you want, believe that you've received it and you will receive it. So whatever it is in your life that you're struggling with, I hope my story has brought, has impacted your heart and your mind. I hope that it has ignited faith. I hope you see how beautiful of a person that you are, and that there is no competition, because nobody is you, and that you can absolutely, whatever thing that you've been dreaming in your heart, it is already yours if you believe it is yours. So you just have to believe and go after it, and be addicted to growth, be addicted to evolving, be addicted to love and trusting the process, and faith and trust and focus and patience, and all of those. Pursue those with all of your heart, and everything in your life, your story will dramatically change. I love you all so much. I am so darn grateful for you. I just hope that you will reach out, that you will share your stories with me as well, because I need some encouragement. I need some faith from your journeys too. So don't ever hesitate. You guys, that said, I'm going to be starting a free community on our brand new app that we have launching in January, and it's the Change Your Story community. So if you are on this podcast, if you have a story, if you want to connect with other women with a story, we're all at different places in our lives, or maybe we're not, but we all have something of value to share. And it's when we get vulnerable enough to share our stories that we get stronger together. So this will be an absolutely free group. So make sure you check back with me. I should put everything in the show notes as far as links. When I'm recording this, it's December 4th. So January 7th, the app will be launched and you can join this community. If you get on the email list, I will send out an email with when this community is launched. I really want to bring community. I really want to bring women together, and I really want to be able for all of us to impact each other's lives in such a beautiful way. You are my soul sisters, and I'm grateful for you. You guys, that said, stay tuned for the next episodes as I'm going to be going over my lessons and reflections from my life. And these are going to be short but powerful. I've got some awesome stuff to really impact your heart and your mind. So next episodes, get your journal because you're going to want to write this down. You're going to want to record this because it's really going to help you change your story and really impact your heart and your mind so that you can transform your life. I love you all. Until next time, bye for now.